Hey guys, Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. Just kind of do a little market recap video here for anybody who may have not been in the room, or people maybe who couldn't, keep their eyes on the market and just, throughout the trading day, just kind of recap a little bit of, what we saw and, kind of what happened in the market. So today I thought was a fairly powerful up day in the market, right? We had about 79, call it 80% advancers versus effectively 20% decliners in the market. It to me feels and looks like a bull market. We have stocks that are acting super awesome, and even stocks that are like giving these like really short consolidation patterns are really just pushing out from there, right? We had some names on the watch list last night that I thought kind of fit that bill, and I wasn't completely comfortable adding them, right? Namely, one of them being Tesla, where it just had like this little flat pivot. I am in since May 9th at 200 and effectively 93 bucks. And I thought today, over 348, something I even talked about in pre-market this morning, 348, 350, had that nice little flat pivot, and then a push out from there all day long, just effectively grinding higher all day long. Now, I thought that it was a little bit extended from the 50, so I didn't really want to mess up my cost basis. Hindsight's 2020. I wish I would have put on, another couple thousand shares or something like that, and then now look at the awesome day that it's having. Like I said, hindsight's 2020. I could have just added 20-25% to the position and let it work from there, but I didn't. And now it's kind of just rolling without me, and it wasn't the only one that I had been talking about on the watch list, or even on Friday. And the Shake Shack is another one, right? It had this like nice little shelf in here, this really neat consolidation, and off to the races effectively right from the word go. A nice 7.5% up day. And some of these food stocks are acting better than others, but the other one that kind of caught my attention was Eat, and this one's off to the races too. This one kind of caught my eye on Friday, and then just with the really nice update that it had, and then again very subtle gap up, and then continuation today. Super awesome to see. And really for the most part, I thought the watch list acted pretty well. There were a few things that a little odd, right? Considering the market was up 2%, considering the NASDAQ was up 2.3%. A name like Palantir, a little bit of weakness today, a bit of give back. Yes, it closed green. Yes, it bounced off the 20. But it wasn't the best action considering the market, right? I kind of viewed this as a little bit of a bull flag going into today. And, I thought over 127 bucks was buyable, but really no dice, right? Just this nice little consolidation, pull back into the 20. I was looking for over 127 because this was the ugly down day that it had a few days ago. So 127, 128 is still a level that I'm going to be watching going forward, but I won't get involved in it on dips right now. And if it starts to lose the 20 and the market begins to pull back, does this thing have room back down to the 50? That is yet to be seen. I kind of noticed some weakness on this one as well a few days ago on Thursday, where I was like, noticeable weakness with Bitcoin at all-time highs. And then, the very next day, subtle gap down and effectively a rollover. And, even Bitcoin hanging out up 1% for the day. MSTR, again, similarly, effectively flat. At some point today, it was even red. And the market that we're in is just kind of the most speculative stocks moving. I kind of had like a little tongue-in-cheek in the room where it's like, first it's the quantum stocks, and then it's the nuclear stocks. And by the way, some of these companies, some of them make money, a lot of them don't, right? It's the most speculative stuff. But, first is quantum, then it's the nuclear. Sure enough, next is the space stocks, is what I said. So like your Rocket Labs, which do have earnings and sales, and then obviously your lunars, and then right after that would be your robotics. And I literally have a message of it in the room. And sure enough, today, without fail, I noticed IRBT with a super big update on massive volume. I noticed RR, super big update on volume. And obviously, there's no better robotics name out there than Tesla, and it's continuing higher as well. I am in Tesla, so I have no FOMO of trying to own the turds. But, it was really surprising to me that like these really short, bullish, high type flags, while still extended from the 50, are still continuing to get follow through. But it's fairly similar with other names too, right? Like at first, SE was looking really good. Obviously, closed with an upper wick, but short consolidation starting to push out this morning. I didn't really add. I didn't touch adding any Tesla. I wasn't going to add SE. I wasn't even going to add AVGO, and this still looks like it's got a nice high type flag going. Probably just waiting on Nvidia's earnings would be the safe assumption, and then Carvana as well. This really short high type flag still extended from the 50. So they all share a common trait, and that common trait is they're extended from the 50. So I'm not a buyer of these. In fact, today what I actually did buy, and a little bit extended from the 50, is this Snowflake, but I bought it as a high volume close setup, and over $203. And if you had gone back and looked at your Sezzles high volume close setup for earnings, right? Your Dave high volume close setup for earnings, even your NRG, right? High volume close setup for earnings, and then this one's kind of just going sideways nicely, and then what was your other one? Oddity, high volume close setup after earnings. These things all just had really nice follow through, very, very easy setups to understand and trade. Just take the close of the high volume day, good above, bad below. Don't make it too much more complicated than that. And then, of course, I was watching Okta for earnings today, and this one kind of had a pretty nasty move down. I am watching this thing tomorrow to see if it'll find some love against the 50 simple moving average. But again, does a name like this start to affect, a CrowdStrike? I don't believe so, right? This is just a beautiful cup and a handle breakout. Spotify, again, was a cup and a handle today, but closed kind of weak. And this isn't really so when you notice that the market's pushing higher and then you get a stock closing at the lows, effectively right on the day, that's not the best sign ever. Again, this one deserves a little bit of a pass, a little bit of a consolidation, maybe even longer, because this is effectively like a late stage base. This has been in a run for forever. So again, the longer the sideways for Spotify, the better. But for the short term, could this be a short? If it loses the 20, yeah, it's possible. But again, something like Palantir, something like Spotify, when the market's ripping 2% higher, right? I'm in Netflix, and I would expect Spotify to be acting like Netflix, and it's just not, right? That's just the reality. It's not doing so. Netflix is acting much better. I'm happy to be in Netflix, but I also wanted to try and find myself into Spotify, and it just wasn't happening. So, it is what it is. Like I said, I did try some Snowflake today over the high volume close. A little bit green on it right now, using low of day as my stop. And then I did try adding some Uber today as a higher low setup, effectively taking out yesterday's highs. And, it's not really doing anything, effectively flat on the position as I speak. So also low of day stop. I own Uber for much lower, from $75, and I did add some today, effectively just bouncing off the 20. Do we get some continuation and follow through? I have no idea. What I do know for sure is tomorrow afternoon is Nvidia's earnings, and it's effectively going to tell us what's going to happen for the next few weeks. If Nvidia pulls an Okta, right, where it's getting its ass kicked after earnings, it's going to be a wet blanket on all semiconductors. It's going to probably hit AVGO, it's going to hit ARM, it's going to hit TSM, it's going to hit ALAB, it's going to hit CRDO, you name them. And I believe that these names are actually starting to act better, so I'm hopeful for some good NVIDIA earnings, but I don't want to anticipate the earnings. I would rather react, and the two best setups really that I'm seeing within the sector, AVGO would be completely happy buyer, after this thing is consolidated perfectly sideways for 10 days. TSM is the other one. That looks really, really interesting. That just had a super nice day today. And then, for the power generation names, GEV is a complete monster, acting superb. It's not even really breaking its 5-day simple moving average, which is just nuts. And then CEG, I noticed today, almost bought some CEG today, but kind of just left it alone. Again, short flag, a little bit extended from the 50, and then VST is the other one that I noticed as well today. Again, short flag, a little bit extended from the 50. That just seems to be the theme right now. And then kind of if you look at your Amazons of the world, right, where Amazon was a 200 simple moving average undercut and rally, right? If you looked at, your NQ, it was effectively the same deal, right? It's like you had that down day and then a rally right back through. Again, no real opinions from me here. I need the market to pull me in. I've got a superb watch list, and I'll be sure to post that in the room. But otherwise, I think just some patience here is the way to go. We don't know if names like Okta get bought back up. We don't know if Snow's going to have follow through. We don't know if Tesla's going to have follow through. Like I said, I'm up 70 plus points on a Tesla, and today in hindsight maybe I could have added a little bit, but the reality is I don't really want to chase stocks. Right now, I would rather wait for them to pull into their ascending moving averages. Play them as high or low setups. Play them as pullbacks into those ascending moving averages, and then look for a 620 setup off of that said moving average. So that's just kind of my thinking right now. A lot of stocks are still extended from the 50, but a lot of stocks are acting awesome. Even the ones that are a little bit extended, and then even the ones that have had recent earnings, like a TMDX, which I own, like Toast, which I own. Don't think these are doing anything wrong per se. They're just kind of hanging out after their earnings, and we'll see what really starts to have some follow through. For instance, one of the stocks that didn't get me too excited, which I own from $100, is CLS, and it has a gap up today, effectively hits $125, and fades off $8 off the highs. So kind of sucks in that regard, but again, when you're up almost 20% on your shares and you're trimmed, there's nothing you can really do. Just trail your ascending moving averages, continue to scan the market, look for stocks in leading groups, good earnings and sales, look for your setup that you understand, and then just execute with proper size. So if you guys like this video, give it a little like, and I will try to keep doing these every day and sharing some of these on X as well as on the YouTube. And for everybody else, this will be posted in the room, just so I can maybe then just do the watch list in the evening. So anyway, guys, thank you, and I will see you guys bright and early for pre-market. Cheers.